Parse all things 2016, CBS News contributor and Republican strategist, Frank Luntz. Frank, so much to get to today. I want to, though, ask you first about the news conference that Donald Trump is scheduled to have later today to address the millions of dollars, $6 million to be exact, that his campaign had claimed it had raised for veterans groups. It's been tough to pin down how much money was raised, which monies have already been distributed, et cetera. A lot of people have gone to their theoretical graves predicting that this is the moment. This could be the Rubicon from which he cannot cross back. What, if any, impact could this have on his campaign?
So let's set it in context. Veterans are the most supported subgroup of the American electorate than any. More people feel positive about veterans than nurses or teachers, the elderly or the poor. So if you short shrift a veteran, you have a problem. However, Trump already said that John McCain isn't a war hero. Trump has already made commitments about the veterans, and one wonders what he's actually delivered. He is simply held to a different standard. He's judged by different rules than any other candidate, not just in this election, but any election. I believe that whatever he says will be accepted by those who support him, will be rejected by those who reject him, and there'll be no change. And we won't be talking about this 48 hours from now because there'll be another Trump issue, another Trump phenomenon that will, this guy, every news cycle is about him. And if he wants to win, he needs to make it about Hillary Clinton. He absolutely has a chance. And I never said this as recently as 30 days ago. He can win this election, but he needs to make it a referendum on her, not a referendum on himself.
But then it would speak to a need to essentially operate against his essence, to your point, that everything he is wrapped himself in the cloak of self-unpredictability, that I don't need focus groups, and frankly, I don't need a lot of organization. I'm just going to keep plowing ahead.
He'd put me out of business. I mean, I need politicians who want focus groups. But and I guess the point is, at what point do you cross that line?
Okay, but so is it a question then of party unity? We hear a lot, for instance, about how this party will have to be unified for him to be a viable candidate come November. And yet, just last week, in her own state, he attacks GOP rising star Susana Martinez. Yep. He inspires friends, not just the Jeb Bushes and the Lindsey Grahams, who we've come to know dislike Donald Trump, but again, and Paul Ryan, who came out and said she's a friend of mine and she's been a good Republican. Does party unity even matter when it comes to Donald Trump?
It's not about party unity. For him, he is bringing people to the Republican Party who do not consider themselves Republican. He's expanded the electorate that will consider voting for a Republican nominee because it is him, just as Bernie Sanders has done exactly the same thing with the Democrats. Trump has taken independents that are moderately conservative and turned them into Republicans who may not vote for the Senate, may not vote for the House. I could see a situation now where Trump actually wins the presidency and the Republicans still lose the Senate. These are independent-minded individuals who want to vote against Washington and Wall Street, and Trump gives them that opportunity.
We have seen the historic unfavorables, particularly as they regard trust. If the numbers then remain awash, as we now see them, the polls have all tightened. First of all, to the debates, how important will those moments one-on-one be?
I am doing everything I can to purchase the pay-per-view rights for those debates. I am trying to create brand new drinking games for those debates. I think they're going to be the most watched debates ever, much more than whomever watched Nixon Kennedy in 1960. I think it's going to be significant. I expect Hillary Clinton to bring her A game. I expect Donald Trump to bring his Trump game. But you're right about that point, trust and integrity. That is the number one attribute for voters who have not made up their minds. And I call them the none of the above voters.
Yeah.
They specifically say that they don't want to vote for Clinton, they don't want to vote for Trump, but they commit to voting. And no other issue and no other attribute comes close to honesty and integrity. And those voters believe that neither candidate has it. They give Trump's net negative 76%, Clinton's net negative is 70%. Stalin did better among people who he imprisoned than these two individuals. And it's not that they hate politics. They give Bernie Sanders a net 20% positive. At the same time, they give Trump and Clinton a net 70% negative.
Is there a viable, then, we've heard Bill Kristol say he's going to put a candidate on the table.
He's going to put a candidate on the table.
We've heard
that ought to make you wonder, that in itself. And that's exactly what voters don't want. They don't want some Washington pundit telling them who to vote for.
Do they want Gary Johnson?
The ones who are stoned do. The ones who live in Colorado or those states.
But you mentioned that these moderate Republicans, might they lean, especially with Bill Weld on the ticket as well? Who might? And we saw, for instance, what Ralph Nader did to Al Gore in Florida in 2000.
Exactly.
Does that situation, does that scenario present itself here?
I think Gary Johnson will do better than any libertarian candidate has ever done. I think he'll be perhaps as high as 3 or 4%. And more of those votes will come from the Republican than the Democrat, but it's not the moderate Republican. Don't look at this ideologically. Look at this more from a socioeconomic basis. So I'm standing outside CBS studios, and I'm seeing the cars and the people being dropped off here. The people who are driving those cars are voting for Donald Trump. The people who are getting out of those cars are voting for Hillary Clinton, which is why in sets like this, very few people here are supporting Trump, and they don't know anyone who supports Trump. If you are tired of work, you're supporting Hillary Clinton, not Donald Trump. But if you're walking or busing or training to work, you're probably a Donald Trump supporter.
And you stick with us here on CBS, and we're going to have much more with Frank Luntz about other challenges facing Hillary Clinton now. That's coming in our next hour right here on CBSN.